to return briefly to the beautiful Catholic both and of
Yeah.
like intellect and action, of spirituality and social
Yeah.
justice. Prince of Peace Parish, we've got in Maine here represented Bishop. The parish staff here at Prince of Peace in Maine, the pastor says what he was changed by learning Thomas Aquinas, and he sees now that it's more than just intellectual information. Could you speak a little bit about the affective side of Thomas Aquinas?
Oh gosh, yeah. Thomas himself had a very powerful affective side, and sadly, in a way, you don't really sense it immediately in his writing because he felt, I think, in his time, the needful thing was to write in that very abstract, kind of dryly intellectual manner, and he just kind of was putting out syllogisms one after the other. But that was the university culture he felt he needed to address. Having said that, Thomas had a richly, call it emotional, deeply personal spiritual life, centering around the Mass, a Mass that he would celebrate himself every morning, and then he'd assist at a second Mass, celebrated by his assistant. And they say Thomas rarely got through Mass without weeping copiously. You don't think of him that way, do you? But they say every day. That was his deeply emotional reaction to what was happening at Mass. We know, too, about his mystical life. There's all kinds of stories about Thomas having these powerful experiences of God. Most famously, and I took my bishop's motto from that, when the Lord spoke to Thomas, "You've written well concerning the sacrament of my body. What would you have as a reward?" And he enunciated my episcopal motto, namely, "Non nisi te, Domine." I'll have nothing except you, Lord. And they say after he said that, he levitated, like some of the great mystics. So Thomas had that in spades. I mean, there was a very powerful emotional, personal, spiritual side. And then look at his poetry. So just for Corpus Christi, we all were studying again the Pange Lingua, which includes the Tantum Ergo that we know so well. But Thomas, a deeply effective poetry around the Eucharist. So I love that side of him. It's probably underplayed. Go get Father Paul Murray's book called Aquinas at Prayer. It's really good. His texts on prayer, but also, as he says, Aquinas at prayer. What was it like for Thomas to pray? Get his book and you'll find all that. And again, you're right, the both and. I used to tell my students at Mundelein, use whatever works, because people are different. Some people are intellectual searchers and they've got lots of questions and doubts. All right, great. We got a rich intellectual tradition to bring. Other people don't respond to that. It's just, I don't know, it's just not in their wheelhouse. It's not their thing. They're going to respond to the beauty of the faith. They're going to respond to the mystical and spiritual tradition. Okay, good. Other people, they respond like the Mother Teresa. They respond to, when I can see the church serving the poor. Great, we got that too. So bring it all out, learn all of it, know all of it, and then you're like a good physician when you're sizing up a patient. You say, now what does this patient need? What's the presenting problem? How do I address it? What's worked in the past? Maybe something that worked with another patient won't work for this person, and I got to be able to respond, And that's the art of the curate, right, who does cura animarum, care of souls, but draw on our rich Catholic tradition. Use all of it. And of course, that's our Word on Fire instinct, is we try to be smart, and we try to be very beautiful, and we try to bring in the spiritual, mystical. So it's all there. Now, learn what works in a given situation.
That's great. As a teacher, I certainly saw that in my students, as I could teach the same exact thing, and one young man would be all in, and another would shrug his shoulders and be like, meh. But I could tell him the same exact thing at the baseball dugout. Right. And he'd be a little more like, oh, yeah, that's cool.
Right. And why, I think when I was 14 years old and discovered Thomas Aquinas through this lecture at a freshman high school religion class, and I'm perfectly convinced that nobody else in that classroom, made zero difference. Why did it affect me so much? I don't know. It's a weird grace, but it did. It affected me. And the teacher, he was throwing that out, probably thinking, all right, these, crazy 14-year-olds won't know what I'm talking about. But that one seed landed in good soil. So you do what you can.
Right, we sow anyway.
Yeah.
So welcome again to anyone joining us. Feel free to let us know in the chat where you're coming